I just sent you an invite.
Hi. I'm here. Okay, hang on. So turn on camera.
Yeah.
Oh, there I am.
Let's see.
Oh,
Hey.
they're all working now. Yay!
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I was just at my daughter's ballet class, so I was just like,
First
it was
of all,
like adorable.
thank you. I know it's been like back and forth with scheduling. Thank you so much for coming on here. I think you might get some other people on this platform. Me and Envy fight so hard for women and women's spaces. Can you just give us your quick, I'm Christy, by the way, that's Envy. We both are on here doing, like, I do social issues. She speaks only about women, women's rights, women's spaces. And we try to get a message out to, people, hopefully people that are teetering and they're not sure which way to go. We can tip them over to our side, or just let people that are unaware of the situation know what's actually going on. Because a lot of people don't really understand, what's happening. Can you just give like a quick background of yourself? Envy, I'm gonna mute. Let's mute together when she talks. I can give feedback if you don't mind.
So the quickest way to describe it, so basically I worked in Hollywood for almost 10 years. This is a pre-Me Too Hollywood. It was horrible. It was as bad as everybody says it is. And when I came back to Australia, I was very broke. I was so broken. I was a shell. And I went into therapy to recover from it. It was my therapist who said, you need a strong female support network in your life. And it was this major light bulb moment for me. I was like, yes, my life would have been completely different with that. And I was talking with my mum, and my mum said, let's create a woman-only app so that every woman can have a woman-only support network in the palm of her hand at all times. I had no idea that there was any kind of controversy over what a woman is. I thought it was obvious. And so I was sort of thrust into this craziness in a way I just didn't prepare for. I didn't expect it, didn't know. So we decided to basically, TRAs tried to destroy the platform just before we launched it. We decided to tread water because I honestly thought that it was so ridiculous what was being claimed that I honestly thought it would be over in a few months. How wrong was I? Cut to 2 years after that of treading water, I had an Australian Human Rights Commission complaint filed against me by a man who claims to be a woman. I refused to agree to his terms to settle it in the Human Rights Commission, which would have been going to sex and gender education, letting him on the app, letting any man basically on the app, and moderating content so that he was not offended. Said no. So he escalated it to the federal court. And now we've just had the hearing in federal court after 2 long years of waiting for it. And if we lose in federal court, which there's a possibility we will, always known that, we will appeal it to the High Court, where we were able to challenge the fact that there's laws, even in legislation, that allow men to be women. So that's basically everything in a nutshell.
Did you expect men to join this app knowing your history and what you've been through?
What I expected is I just knew that men, I was picturing a different demographic of men, but there's sort of predatory men of like, oh, women, don't they have enough? And that they would, mock it, and then some would try to go in. I knew that we had to have gatekeeping. I literally did not know this other demographic existed. So that is what blindsided me. But we had the gatekeeping in place, right? We knew of that because it's sort of the thing, if men didn't want to invade female-only spaces, it would almost lessen the need for them. Because the fact that they want to go in them so much is proof of how necessary they are, that women need a refuge from this kind of, overbearing, boundaryless behavior. So, yeah, I just didn't realize, I suppose if you even want to look at it through like a right-left lens or anything like that, I thought that it would be sort of more from the right that would have had a problem with it, not the left. And it's turned out to be the complete opposite. I got it completely wrong.
Did you set up AI detection, right?
Yeah. So
how did you get through that?
So what it basically is, it's a company called Kairos. Like the TRAs treat me as if I created this. I did not. I don't know how to code. Like I'm useless at all this sort of stuff. I'm the ideas person. Basically, what it is it's just you take a photo and it scans it. Most platforms use AI and are scanning our photos in various ways. We were just very upfront about what it was doing. And it can just tell if you're male or female. There's two different ways to be able to tell. One is completely biological. Male and female faces are different, like our skeletons, the points are different. And then the other way is just the basic sort of technological way of like having 10 million photos of women and 10 million photos of men, and you're just going on a probability. And so we had it set to 94% accuracy because through our testing, we found that no woman would get rejected that way. And because it was an app for women, I didn't want women to get rejected, but it would occasionally let a man on. But we were just monitoring it all the time anyway. So we just were like, we'll just remove him manually, which is exactly what we did. Like Roxy Tickle getting on the app, because he did, the guy who took me to court, he did get on. He passed through the AI. And it's always sort of been argued or presented that means that he was verified as a woman. No, men got on, like there'd be a man a day that would pass through it. We'd manually take him out. It was because technology is not perfect. The good old fashioned human eye actually works a lot better, but it's just because sometimes the sheer volume of men, and I didn't expect this. I didn't expect it to be as crazy as it was, but the sheer volume of men that would sometimes be trying to come on, like I'm talking thousands an hour. It would work perfectly. Yeah. We wouldn't have physically been able to kick thousands an hour out. So the gatekeeping was sort of just aiding us in making sure it was female only. It wasn't the be all and end all. Like it was just part of the process. Yeah.
How long was he on the app before he was actually kicked out? I heard it was a couple of months, I think, right?
Well, it's a good question because all I can know is his claim. I know the date he went on because that was recorded on our server, but there was no record of when someone was kicked off.
Okay.
And because I don't remember doing it, so I've had to just go by his statements on that. And I'm like, okay, but because how it would have happened that he was missed is because he wasn't using it. Because what I would do multiple times a day is we'd go through just the active users, because that's how sometimes if we did miss a guy, that's where we'd see him and we'd remove him. So the fact that he wasn't coming up meant that he wasn't using the app. He didn't connect with anybody on it. He didn't talk to anyone. It was digital voyeurism. He didn't do anything on it. So like there's no impact in his life of not using it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I heard you say in another interview, it might've been like a few months that he was on and then he was removed.
It's only because I'm just basing that on kind of what I've been told.
Right. I gotcha. Envy, jump in anytime you're ready.
Yeah. I was going to ask, but since you said he wasn't actually an active user, so you didn't receive any complaints from other women on the app about him being on there?
Nope. Nothing. We didn't post nothing.
From what I heard, I had watched one or two of your interviews prior, and I noticed that you mentioned when he filed the court case against you, he had actually withdrew the case the first time round.
Yeah. So this has gone on longer than what it normally would. If he hadn't have withdrawn, we'd be potentially in the High Court by now. He claims that he withdrew the first time because I had said that I'd be willing to take it to the High Court, so he needed to get secure funding to be able to pay for his side of it. And in the end, he got a pro bono legal team from a very good law firm and a pro bono barrister. And then he also got a $50,000 grant from a place called the Grata Fund, which is like, they sort of, do grants for like legislation challenges and court stuff and, for different demographics of people. So, yeah.
So do you feel like because obviously you've mentioned the High Court, like do you feel like maybe that you may not win this round and that going to High Court would get the win for us?
Yes.
Really?
Yep.
Let's go back a little bit. When he was banned, I watched one of your interviews that he was banned and he actually contacted you.
Yeah. So
Can you
go ahead. Yes, that's when he became an event in my life. Because as I said, I don't remember kicking him off. It was just like another guy. It wouldn't have even, there's so many guys I've kicked off. I can't remember any of them like right now. He would have just remained like that to me. But so this was sometime in October 2021 that I don't know if it was a text first or a call first, whatever it was. And I actually don't answer calls from numbers I don't know. I go to voicemail. And, but I got a text and it was something along the lines of like, and I think he said his name here because the name Roxy Tickle is really memorable. And so like, it's not like John Smith or something, you know what I mean? Like it's a really memorable name. And so that's when I feel like that's my memory says that's when I first heard his name. I don't know if that's completely correct. But basically, because the only thing you needed to be able to use Giggle is a phone number. Like, you know, when like you sign up to TikTok and I can't remember, you can put either a phone number or an email in. That's so you can have an anchor to the user has an anchor to the app. And that's what makes the app then function on your device. So for Giggle, it was just a phone number. We didn't have an email option. So because he'd text my phone, I then had his phone number to type into the Giggle server. And I typed it in, saw a man that he'd already been blocked. And I called my dad and I was just like, Dad, this guy that I blocked from Giggle has called and texted my phone. So keep in mind, at this particular moment, I'm just going, and I mean, this remains true. A man who has been blocked from a woman-only app has called and texted my phone. I was very freaked out. And because that's all I knew about him at this particular point. It wasn't until like I got the Australian Human Rights Commission complaint for gender identity discrimination that was there something where I was like, oh, this is a man who claims to be a woman. At that point, I still didn't know that. There was nothing in his photos to suggest that. There was nothing in, like he'd made like 2 or 3 profiles. He hadn't interacted with anyone, but the profiles were they were blank. There was nothing. There was nothing to suggest that this person had even a gender identity. I don't believe in it, but you know, from that side's in like definition of what it is, nothing.
Do you think maybe if you had known, would that have changed anything for you? If you had, no.
I mean, men aren't women.
They're not.
They're just not. It's just, you know, and like there's lots of different platforms that, whether they're branded for women but allow men on, or whether they're just, you know, just for free for all. There was just lots of people. There's lots of different places. This was just the one place where it's for women. I'm just like, no, I'm not going to make concessions on that. And when we were always called transphobic, and like that's sort of how I was thrust into all of this. And the thing that's always bothered me is that females with a gender identity or trans identity, whatever, they're welcome.
Yeah.
It's just sex-based. It was just female. Like if you are a female, but you believe in this stuff, if you're a woman who believes men are women, you can come on there and talk about it, so long as you're just respectful like any other topic and not like harassing people or anything. But like we didn't police thought, nothing. It was literally the only prerequisite was to be female, of which he is not. So therefore he's not allowed on.
Is his documents changed to say female?
So that's where it gets tricky in law. So how it works in Australia specifically. So we're not like the UK where there is, you know, they've got like the gender recognition certificate. And then in the States and Canada, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think it's the legal document gets changed there as well, like in Australia. So it's the sex marker. This is where this ideology is so nonsense, because they're claiming gender identity, but then in your identification documents, it's your sex marker being changed. But then we're told sex and gender are different. It's like, so well, what is it? Because in reality, how this is being played out, it's being made that gender identity is sex, essentially. Because if you can get your sex marker on your birth certificate changed based on a gender identity, then, you know, as we all know, they're gaslighting us all. So his birth certificate says female, but that's irrelevant to me because he's not.
It's legal. As far as I'm concerned, it's legal fiction. You know, it's legal fiction. It's submitted. It's legal, but it's not real.
I would even go one step further. It's beyond a legal fiction. It's a legal lie. Why I would say that is the legal fiction example that is cited is adoptive parents. Because adoptive parents, like basically that is a legal fiction that has been created that they get all of the exact same rights as biological parents, as they should. But they're not, you know, because they had to create a legal fiction because parent was a biological thing.
Yeah.
However, for biological parents and then adoptive parents, like, so you've, the commonality in those two groups is the child. With women and men who claim to be women, there's no commonality. it's so a man being able to be have a legal fiction of woman is the equivalent of a childless person being legally considered a parent.
Makes sense, actually. It's actually a good comparison.
Yeah.
Question for you also. How was it hard for you to find an attorney to take this case?
No, I was really lucky. This hadn't even really thought about it too much, but I don't think I would have, if I'd gone out looking for a pro bono one, I don't think I would have found it. Really? Because in the really big law firms in Australia, like, so sort of they're like, national law firms that have the big pro bono departments, that they were created so that basically everybody could have really good legal representation, whether you could afford it or not. And how they get rewarded for that is they get big government contracts. So they end up earning significantly more money for the firm through other work than what is costing them. But they've all been co-opted by, all of these ideologies and would not be interested in fighting against them. So I was always going to have to pay for it. I was just very lucky. Like when I got the Human Rights Commission complaint, I called, who is now my solicitor, Kath Deves, but we were just friends at that point. We'd met through this stuff. And so she was the first person I called because she was a lawyer. So I was like, okay, I need advice. I don't know what to do. And she introduced me to another solicitor who helped me through that phase of it, but she didn't come on to the next part of it. But she introduced me through that AHRC process. I was introduced to who is now my barrister, Bridie Nolan, who's amazing. And she's got 5 daughters.
Oh, wow. She's
this amazing, like powerful, like total boss of a barrister. Like you would not want to be on the other side of her. I have once, she got angry at me once and I was so petrified. I was in the fetal position crying. She's so good at what she does. But she, so she had just been watching what had been happening and looking at the law, and she saw very quickly what had happened with the law and what needed to happen to fix it. And when barristers or legal people realize that, you just need the case then to run it. And so when we went to her with this case, she was like, okay, that's the case to run it. Let's go. And so I have always been told by my legal team from the AHRC days, this case is going to the High Court. So the federal court's always been part of the process to me. It was never the be all and end all.
Wow.
Because just say we win, there's a very high chance the other side will take it to the High Court. They're not going to take the loss. And we're definitely not going to take the loss. I would definitely take it to the High Court. So there's a part of me in a way, whether this is just psychological, that I'd almost prefer to be the one that takes it to the High Court, because it would feel like for me that for the first time in 2 years,
Sending gifts, guys. Sorry about that.
It just feels like I get to make a decision, because I just feel like I've been the respondent the whole time. I'm just at the receiving end of other people's decisions. I just feel like a loss in the federal court to me was almost a psychological win, because I get to then make the decision of what happens next. And so I can appreciate that.
Yeah. What about censorship and like media? Anything in Australia? Was this like a big case there? Probably not.
The censorship in Australia is insane. So it's a smallish population country, so we don't have crazy media like the UK and the US. It's all very legacy, very captured, very mainstream. Like our state broadcaster, the ABC, is completely captured on this. So in the lead up to the 2-year lead up, no. I mean, The Guardian did one article about it when I found out that it had been refiled, but that was it. During the hearing, let's say the trial, there was actually relatively good coverage, and I'd say 90% of it was pretty fair, as good as we're going to get at this point. I mean, I'm still the Wicked Witch of the West, but it was better than what it could have been or what it has been. The ABC, however, did portray me as that I'd been harassing Roxy Tickle for the last 2 years, which I take huge objection to, because I don't know this person. I would have no reason to speak about him if he hadn't taken me to court. I can't wait for the day when I never have to speak about him again. But I had to raise $500,000 to pay for this. The case was allowed to go ahead because it was deemed in the public interest. I was like, and I agree, I think it is in the public interest. I think people should know what's going on. And so like the one thing that I had that I could do during this hell was to talk about it. And so now, yes, they do want to punish me for talking about it.
But can I ask you also, along with this, did you get any type of like harassment or bullying from other like TRAs and things like that?
Just in the normal way that most of us do when we're talking out about this. Nothing out of the ordinary of what I'm used to. Right. It's part of the things, because someone said to me something recently about like how absurd this court case is. And I had this moment of like, it has become so normal in my life that I forget that it's crazy.
Yeah.
What about women erasure? Do you feel like because we have nothing left, I would say in every female space that we have, it has been infiltrated by men, right? The prisons, the sports, the scholarship, the sororities, the shelters, the spas, everywhere. Now the app. And then there's freedom to assemble, where the TRAs come and they shut down, women only advocacy, where they want to talk about women's issues. Now they shut them down. What do you think the reason behind it is?
I do think it's extreme misogyny. I think there's a perfect storm of lots of different things that have happened for this moment to be able to play out how it is. For me, I think why the media has backed it as much as they have in the US, the UK, and Canada, and Australia is because the timing of it is too crazy for this not to be the case, I think. We basically, in 2017, 2018, sort of dying by 2019, I was not aware, but it was, we had this Me Too thing, this women grassroots movement of women's boundaries, and the men who were getting called out were men in media. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly the media took that off the front page, and now if you're a woman with boundaries, you're a bigot. I think it's just too perfect for these men. I don't think any of the men in media who write, whether they're journalists, editors, broadcasters, whatever, I don't think 99.9% of them give a shit about trans rights. I think they love the woman erasure, and that women, that we're getting called bigots for having boundaries, that we're just sort of running around trying to work out where we're even situated in society now. I think they probably didn't even plan it. They're like, oh, this couldn't have worked out better for us. Because now, I mean, look at this. Like Harvey Weinstein just got his thing overturned. Like this is everything is going backwards.
I know. It just seems to be like men in power, or men in general always get to tell us, what spaces we're allowed to have and how we're allowed to have it, and like how much privacy we're entitled to, and are we allowed to have privacy in the bathrooms? Like that's where we're at now, and I find it to be incredibly harmful and incredibly hurtful to women and to girls that have to just kind of take a knee and get verbally abused and be told that we're transphobic, we're bigoted, we're hateful. I just wanted to ask you something else too. Speaking of that, what about like being told you have to be kind to people, like you have to be nice, and like you just have to call them, what's the big deal? It's just pronouns, who cares? What do you think about that?
I think it's absolute bullshit. I think that it's really unkind to demand women give up our spaces, give up our language, give up our rights in law, our just reality as a category of human beings separate from men. That's not kind. None of that is kind. And that was when I was finding out what was going on. And, I'd sort of heard in the background, like in 2018, 2019, be kind. And of course, like any person always just goes, of course I want to be kind to people. But then when you actually find out it's this manipulation of your empathy, and that you are being demanded to be kind to people who are so cruel to you, mm-hmm. and who want you to have nothing, that's not kindness, that's abuse.
Yeah, at what cost, right? So be kind until we lose our space. So that's basically what they're asking us to give up, is our rights in order to be kind. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you know what? If I'm going to choose between a man who to be kind to, either a man who thinks he's a woman or my daughter, guess who I'm going to choose?
Yeah, definitely.
It's not
and
a ridiculous dress.
yeah, no, definitely. And what do you think about you having to pick, really, right? You have to pick either gender identity or sex-based reality. It has to be one or the other in law. We can't protect both, because if you protect gender identity, you're infiltrating on women and girls' rights. And what do you think is going to happen? Let's look at the negative part of it. Like, say you lose the case, and you go to the high court and you say you lose it there. Knock on wood, because I hope that doesn't happen. Where do you see yourself going from that point?
Well, I just saw someone in the comments that mentioned CEDAW, so this is a great time to explain it. So CEDAW is the Convention of the Elimination of Discrimination Against All Women and Girls. It's something like a really long name that the acronym doesn't spell CEDAW, but CEDAW is the acronym. But it's essentially an international Bill of Rights for women that was written in 1979, and it's been signed by 189 countries. So the US is a signatory, Canada. The only countries that haven't signed it are the really shitty ones that you would expect not to sign it. And all countries have incorporated it into law. It's called enlivening it into law in various different ways. What actually makes Australia very unique to defend this document that we're all actually beholden to is that Australia incorporated it pretty much in full. So became a signatory of CEDAW in 1983, and then we enlivened it in our legislation by creating the Sex Discrimination Act. So CEDAW is a document, an international bill of rights. It's UN International Bill of Rights for women and girls that is biologically based. Like, it is female. Now, they don't define it in there because this is written in 1979 when no one thought that they had to. But when you go through it, it is very clear that it's biologically based. What happened also for us, we had the UN Special Rapporteur, Reem El Salim. She wrote to the Australian Human Rights Commission here regarding our case and going, no, CEDAW's for biological females. Right. So when we go into the High Court, so there was part of this that happened in the federal court, but how the High Court case of Tickle v. Giggle, it's not the he said, she said, or did gender identity discrimination happen at that point. It is, can and should gender identity be in law? Now, the reason it is actually deemed from our argument and evidence to be unconstitutional is that how you are allowed to make laws and that they have to fit with international law. It's called it's the external affairs power and something else. And so because CEDAW is a document for biological females, putting something in our Sex Discrimination Act that says men are women is then in breach of CEDAW.
Right.
So that's basically what we would be defending and saying, like, get gender identity out of the Sex Discrimination Act. It should never have been there. This case should never have happened. Now, do I think that you could have gender identity in law somewhere? I think it's a nonsense concept, but I think lots of things are nonsense concepts and they're in law and they're protected in some way. I think that you could have it protected as like a freedom of belief. Because I think if you want to think that you're like a purple spaghetti monster and that's how you live your life, okay. But just no one, you can have that belief protected, but no one else should be forced to believe it. And that is the crux of protection of freedom of belief. Whereas what they've done here and what they're doing in various countries is making it that everybody else has to believe in it while they take away our rights. With the UK, apparently with the Equalities Act, what was actually very clear with the gender recognition certificate and gender reassignment being put in the Equalities Act was that it did not supersede sex when sex was the defining thing. Like when they were doing it, that was the argument, and it was very clear. But what happened was Stonewall came along and lied to everyone for the last 10 to 12 years, saying that gender reassignment and gender identity were more important than sex and overrode it. They were just lying. So there's many times here when my legal team has been explaining what happened with CEDAW, and I'm like, so what, they just lied, and they're like, yeah, it's just all a lie. I'm like, oh, how? I didn't even know you were allowed to do that. I think you actually had to have evidence and the truth, and it's mind blowing to me that people have lied how they have.
Yeah, they're even going to, in the UK, under the Equalities Act, they have to redefine sex. So it's clear that sex means biological and not legal sex. Because what it is now, because they're allowed to change their documents, they are saying, hey, I'm legally female, which means I can access female spaces.
So that comes into Tickle, yes, that comes into Tickle v. Giggle a bit too, because that's basically our federal court hurdle, is this concept of legal sex. Legal sex is gender ideology, because for the rest of us, it's just biological sex.
Yeah.
Like, our legal document is just a reflection of the biological reality. So if you are getting your sex marker in your birth certificate changed, it's only because you're getting it changed to the opposite. Incidentally, on the birth certificates, when they reissue them, it states there that it's been edited. It's just taking the scenic route to confirm they're still male. The document still establishes that this person is male. It's just that they're saying there's been an edit to just say that they're female. And you're like, well, I mean, this thing to say that they're female, you can go as an individual and live your life however you want. You can wear whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. But the moment you have that legal sex change, it is specifically taking away the rights of other people, because it's making other people go in on all of this and have to change our categories, our perception of reality, how we have our spaces, how everything is set up in society for women to be able to function in it, blah, blah, blah. So they just it's like they never thought of like how this would actually play out in reality, because they never asked women.
But do you think that this was an intentional thing by the law? Or do you think like it was an honest mistake, like you just kind of said like, oh, they didn't think about it thoroughly? Do you think they knew what was going to happen and that women were just going to sit back and say, hey, fine, we accept these men as women?
Sometimes I actually feel like I have to just think it was an honest mistake, because if I don't think that, I'll get so angry. But when you actually, like for the Australian one, when you look through what they did, no, I don't. I think it was malicious. How else could it be? Because it takes seconds to sit there and go, hang on, because as legislators, their responsibility is to think of all of the intentional and unintentional consequences of something. And so either they didn't do that, or they did, but if they're either malicious or incompetent, I think they're malicious.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, that's almost better to own up to, because the level of incompetency, I think, is almost worse than the malice. But yeah, again, the malice is so evil. I just have to think like, oh no, did a really big accident happen? But in a way, I also don't care about what happened 10 years ago. I care about what's happening now. And that when the Australian Human Rights Commission intervened in Tickle v. Giggle, which they did, so we had the human rights complaint, and then they actually intervened in the case as amicus curiae, which is friend of the court. And they're there just to interpret the law. And so now I've actually seen it play out of how that actually works. So now I kind of know what I'm talking about more than I have previously, because I was like, I don't know what all of this is. They basically just go in there and they just explain what the law means. And I mean, that's a production and a show. It's amazing what they were saying. But their submission, which is publicly available on the Australian Court website, you just type in Tickle v. Giggle, you can read it all, where they just say like, human beings can change sex and sex is not binary. And you're like, but they're trying to establish this concept of legal sex, because effectively that's what they're talking about. But you're like, well then what is legal sex if it's not biological sex? Yeah. Because then if it's not biological sex, why call it sex?
Yeah, because they try to run with the notion that, oh, I am socially a woman. I live my life socially as a woman, but you can't live socially as a woman if you're not female. It's not.
And it's really, you know what it is? It's gaslighting people.
Yeah.
Of people going, oh, well, we all have a legal sex because that's what's on our sex marker. We all have a biological sex that is reflected by our legal documents. Yeah. That's what we've always had. This concept of legal sex, it's just the new fancy word for gender identity ideology that they're just trying to make people not realize it. Legal sex is the biggest threat.
Yeah.
No one should be, I personally think that no human being on the planet should be allowed to change the sex marker on any birth, any document. None at all.
Did you happen to read the Cass report by any chance?
I've read bits of it, but I've read lots of summaries of it. I've read more summaries, yeah.
Because I since joining Twitter and actively tweeting on it and talking about X, whatever, I now see the TRAs are really going in hard on the intersex, the DSD, you know, the disorder of sexual development, the have you got karyotyped? How do you know what your sex is? You know, it's like every single loophole, they'll try to find a loophole somewhere to go, well, you aren't karyotyped, so how do I know that you're a woman? You know, and that's where they're going now. And I'm seeing like even J.K. Rowling is fighting back with it. And I just see everybody fighting back against the ideology. Do you see a lot more like radicalized TRAs? I feel like there are a lot of them are on Twitter because the speech is much more free. Do you notice that yourself?
Yeah. I mean, and look, let's be honest, lies are all they have. So of course they're going to double down. The lies are going to get bigger because it's literally all they've got at this point. It's all they've ever had. But what they had, how they were able to do all of this stuff initially was they had secrecy. It was all done in stealth. Like now they don't have that anymore. So they're not going to be able to, once we get these laws out, they're not going to be able to get them put back in. I think that's really cool. But with the DSD and like intersex, I hate this intersex term. No, it's DSD. It's just a disorder of development. I mean, it's how insulting and offensive to people can you be to call them intersex? In especially sort of our countries that are very developed and have great medical, like especially like maternity units. Okay, maybe in these very rare occasions when a baby is born and they don't know because there is this something, a disorder of development has happened, they can know really quickly. This is not like the 1890s when they're having to guess. We are much more advanced at this. So these are really old concepts that they are trying to confuse to make their point. There are obviously in some other countries where especially the maternity units aren't great at all, where that they might be taking a little bit more of a punt. But let's fix that issue, not just go and enshrine that guess into law, and make sure that, you know, all women have great medical resources when they're giving birth and all babies have great access to great medical care. That would be the ideal situation. People with disorders of sexual development are still male or female. I did this podcast a few weeks ago with this guy in Australia, Josh Zepps, who's really sort of trying, he left the ABC. He's a good journalist. He left the ABC and he wants to sort of establish himself, sort of that sort of like Douglas Murray trigonometry type, but in Australia. And so he actually, it took a lot of begging, but he finally spoke with me. And the one part of the conversation we really disagreed on, was the DSD thing. He was just like, oh, biologists have told me that they're not male, or there are some people who are not male or female. And I'm like, but they're wrong.
They're both, right? Or they're both. They could do both. Yeah.
Every human being is male or female. Your sex organs might have some development issues. You are still male or female because it's in your entire body. I heard Helen Joyce explain one of them. She said, it's not, these are actual serious conditions, or sometimes they're not that serious. There's a few that aren't that serious, but the ones that are really serious, there are some where, because it's a chromosomal and hormone problem, and the body can't process salt or something as one of the symptoms of it, which is a really bad thing for your body not to be able to process salt. So in terms of this just being some kind of identity or something that pumps up transness, no, they're just medical conditions. These are actual physical medical conditions. And these people are being just dragged through the mud and othered and humiliated. I think it's ridiculous.
It's great. But again, saying intersex, that's the biology. If gender identity has no bearing on your biology, why would even use that as an argument? It's just full of it doesn't make sense to me at all.
Because it actually, DSDs prove our point.
Yes. We do this. Me and Christy, we're on here daily. I'll sit up, I'll put a backdrop up, I'll say, women rights, should males be able to access female spaces, X, Y, Z. And the amount of men that claim to be women that will come up and argue with us left, right, and center, and the threats that we get on a daily. I actually currently have an open case against somebody because I'm being harassed. They're looking for my address. They want to harm me because I'm saying no men in women's spaces, and I won't bend, break, or fold on that. And I just want to say to you from my heart, when I saw your video and the passion that you had, if it wasn't you, Sal, and I'm going to say this honestly, if it was not you and it was another woman, she probably would have caved under the pressure and said, do you know what? Let this man on. I just want to make my money and I just want to live my life. But you, I had a shudder when I watched you, because I said to myself, if it wasn't this woman, where would women be now? You are the woman that all eyes are on for women's rights. You are literally carrying women's rights on your, I'm so sorry, but
it's so crazy. I'm like, I just want to make an app. It's like, how did this happen? But you know what, to be honest, I never think of it that way, because I'm like, no, for two reasons. One is shitty men stole my first career. I wanted to be a screenwriter, and shitty men in Hollywood abused me until the point that I was a shell and I couldn't do it. And still to this day, I cannot write. My brain shuts down when I try to write, because I go into survival mode with it, because writing put me in rooms with those predators. So they took that from me. They're not taking the next thing. I won't let it happen. No. And because this was part of the recovery from that, when I realized that a female-only spaces and female in the connection, what that would have done for me and for all of the other women. Because one of the things from the Me Too movement, what that showed was all these women that came out going, it was me too, me too.
yeah.
Imagine if we'd all been able to talk about it in places where men weren't before that. If we were able to connect online, when we're all connecting anyway, where they wouldn't have known that we were all there supporting each other and helping each other. It would have helped us all. It would have stopped it earlier, or it would have brought it to light earlier. Everything would have been better. So I'm just like, no. And then it also comes down to, they're just not women. It's just not true. So even if you were to take women's rights and female spaces out of the equation on this, it is just not true, and we all have freedom of belief, and that is really my North Star with it. Obviously, I'm here for women's rights and female spaces. That's what I'm here fighting for. But even if I didn't have one, if I was not part of it, I'd just be sitting there going, no, freedom of belief. Everyone has that. I'm sorry, I can't. And I just look, sometimes when it's been really hard, and I've had a few breakdowns over the last few years about it, but I just look to this, I've got a 21-month-old daughter. She's just turned 21. Is it 21 months? I've got a 21-month-old daughter, and she's an adorable little girl. Under no circumstances am I going to allow a man into her space, or for her to have to believe this bullshit, or for boundaries to be illegal to her. No. The most important thing that you can teach girls is to say no and have boundaries. And for that to be illegal, and then to just somehow, through this weird twist of fate, that I'm in a position to fight for that, of course, it's a no-brainer. Of course I'm going to fight for it.
Yeah, no, I would say I'm so glad. When I came across the case the first time, I actually I did a 24-hour live. I doubt you saw it, because I did send you a message on the crowdfunding page. I managed to raise 585 AUSD, and I sent that through. I don't know if you saw. I'll send you to your TikTok if it's okay.
I don't know, as you see, with TikTok, I don't really know how to use it. I just post some clips there, but I'm I've got to get better with TikTok. But and I'll watch everything. But yeah, I need to get better. I've just sort of been Twitter has always been my medium, because I was a writer, so I can write things.
Right.
And so it's the only writing I can do. But if someone, there are times now still where I can get really, really anxious and put off. Anyone who's emailed me would know that it can take a long time for me to respond. And part of it is because I get really anxious with writing long form things still. Really? From my Hollywood days. Yeah. I even still, when I get emails, because it was just, it's just how things manifest in your mind. Because basically in Hollywood, you'd write a script, and then your agents and managers send it out to the industry, and the producers and creative execs and studios who want to meet with you say, we want to meet with you. And so you get emails constantly going this person wants to meet with you, blah, blah, blah. But then a lot of those people who wanted to meet with me, I would end up in rooms with them, and they were predatory men who would just wanted to bang me and then punish me when I said no. And so I have this thing of whenever I get emails, or it can be an email for an opportunity, and I'm because I immediately go back to there. It's still there, and I think I've done the therapy, I've implemented the tools, but there's just these little things where I'm I just don't know how to get rid of those last.
How long did you go through that? The Hollywood phase? How long was that? Years or?
Too long. Yeah, I got there in 2009, 21st of April, 2009. And I left, actually, completely coincidentally, on the 21st of April, 2018. So 9 years.
So you endured 9 years of that?
Yeah, well, I left Hollywood in end of 2016, beginning of 2017. I think I was still in LA in the beginning of 2017. I can't remember. And then I went to New York. So I did almost 2 years in New York because basically I woke up one morning, a really bad thing had happened. This producer guy had, I was able to escape, but it very quickly almost escalated to rape. And I woke up and I got home and I was just destroyed. And I woke up the next morning. I remember I was staring at my ceiling and I was like, I cannot get myself out of this here. Like I can't write. I can't function. I could hardly leave the house. I was like, I just don't know what to do. And I was even already at that point. And even for me to leave that house that night was hard. Like, oh God, it was horrible. I can't believe that now I'm like, God, how did I put myself through it for so long? But I was so determined. I was like, I just didn't want to give up. I wanted to write movies. It's all I wanted to do. And I would write rom-coms about strong yet flawed, independent single women. And I just refused to let them win. So I was like, I'll go to New York. There's still industry there. I'm still connected to it, but I'm out of this environment because Hollywood is horrible because it's a one industry town. So everyone's obsessed with it. They don't realize that there's a world outside of it. At first it's really intoxicating because you think it's this amazing, I'm surrounded by these like really motivated and passionate people. And then that goes away pretty quickly.
Like a dark side.
Yeah. And so it was also like I got into the industry. It only took a year for me to get in. In hindsight, it was really quick. It was really easy. It became hard once I was in. It was hell. And then when I got to New York, so in Hollywood, I had like my own apartment. I had my own life. Like, at this point I was like 32. And I was moving to New York and I was like seriously running out of money, going broke very quickly. I was looking for a room to rent. And you're 32 looking for a room to rent. You're like, my life is going backwards here. What am I doing?
Yeah.
And I went on to all of the room. This is part of like the inspiration for the app as well, because I went on to like roommates.com and all of these places. And it was, guys going, oh, you can live here rent free. You get the messages that you can live here rent free if you walk around naked, or it'd be like foot fetish stuff. Do you want a boyfriend as well? And I was just like, can there be one thing that women do in our life that does not have sexual harassment involved in it? And so that was my mum's thing at first when she was like, let's create an app for women. It was just going to be a roommate app. But then when we found out how expensive it is to actually build an app and what you you have to just sort of doing a startup, like what's involved in it. We were like, okay, well, we may as well add more stuff into it. And we were like, it lent itself to it because we were like, well, what other things do women need?
Right.
And so that part of it was all so easy and perfect. We worked it all out really quickly and did a friends and family investing round. It was very, very easy. It was not hard until we were literally doing our security testing and then beta testing on the App Store and Google Play, and the TRAs found us. Then it turned my life upside down. I had no idea this was going to happen.
You were like, wow. So is the app active at the moment whilst you're going through this, or no?
No. So basically what happened, February 7, 2020 was when the TRAs first came for us. And what they did is thousands of them did 1-star reviews on the App Store and Google Play, which basically put us into an algorithmic black hole. Didn't realize it at the time how much they destroyed it, but they had basically killed it then. Wow. It meant that we could never market it. We could never, because you're a dead app. You're dead out of the water. But so at the time, not knowing that, I was just like, we'll just tread water. This will be over in a few months and it will be fine. Because everyone will go, oh, this is ridiculous and what they're doing. And of course, men aren't women. Anyway, obviously, a few months turned into years. But in the 2 years of that, so we had the Human Rights Commission complaint. He'd filed in federal court and then he withdrew. And then I'd had a baby. Like he withdrew like a week before my daughter was born. So my entire pregnancy was taken up with that. And then Belle was about a month old, and I had a meeting with this guy who's one of the really big venture capitalists in Australia, who's like sort of been mentoring me on that side of it, because I'm not, I don't have a background of being a CEO or business or management or anything like that. Like I was just like a, flighty screenwriter who just sort of like went around the world like a tumbleweed. So he's been sort of teaching me basically of what to do. And he was like, we're on this shoestring budget, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, we have to do a huge big build, like technology has evolved. We have to work out, like we've got to do a huge big fix up of it because it's been just sort of sitting there for 2 years. And so he was like, well, you just take it offline, take the hit, take it offline for like 2 or 3 months. You can do the build and you put it back on. I was like, okay, cool, we'll do that. So that was our plan, except Tickle refiled. And so just to protect it, we kept it offline.
Wow. I'm in New York City, so I'm in Brooklyn, and what's that?
I used to live in Bushwick.
I know. We spoke about that. Yeah. The thing here is that, like, gender identity trumps all here. So we have men in the prisons, we have them in sports, we have them in the shelters, they're in the gyms, they're in the spas, they're everywhere. And I reached out to the school chancellor in New York City to see if it's possible that I could have a meeting with him to talk about, what's going on. Email after email, nobody answers you, nobody cares. And the mayor actually said something about, leave the kids alone, leave our trans kids alone, let them do what they want to do, let them play sports, let them. And I'm saying to myself, like, nobody cares about these girls that are trying. And it doesn't say anything good to these girls that are trying as hard as they possibly can and they're failing when they're doing sports and they can't compete with boys. I have a daughter, and I say this every time I'm on the app, who plays volleyball, right? And she's due for a scholarship. And I couldn't imagine a boy taking that away from her just because he's stronger than her. And the other thing too is, like, they'll compare us to, they'll compare themselves to infertile women. Well, you don't have a uterus. She wasn't born with uterus. I wasn't born with uterus. So now we're the same. Or, you had a hysterectomy. I'm an infertile male and you're an infertile woman. So they'll find a plug to plug in. So it's literally like, no matter what we do, even with the sports, even with the language, with the law, everything is changing here. And I mean, we try to advocate, we host lives, we try to do debates. We get the most ridiculous arguments. I watch Envy's live and I actually just laugh because I can't even imagine. They were saying that people were like less male. Yeah. Sex is not binary. Yeah, like they're non-men, and like a lesbian is a non-man. And you just listen to the language and you're like, the language, it's literally the LGBT erasure. On top of it all, it's such a homophobic movement. And I don't think they understand how harmful it is to LGB, because LGB wants to be inclusive and they're inclusive, but the T is just destroying, especially the L.
Yeah, you know how difficult it actually is? Like, I'm a lesbian myself. I've had to come off of dating apps because they're full of men telling me that, I'm a woman. And I'm like, you're not a woman. And it's like, but a girl, they call it.
Apparently, on lesbian dating apps, so women, like lesbians who say biological women only, get kicked off, but men who claim to be women who say biological women only don't. Yeah. So they're not banging other trans women.
Then this is what I'm saying. Why don't they just date each other then? And then you're all right. Leave us alone.
Yes. If trans women are women, right? They don't look for each other. They don't scout each other out. They look for biological women. And even on the lesbian dating apps, I look at it and it says, trans women looking for a natural born woman. And you're acknowledging the fact that you're not that, but you're still going for it.
Completely. Like, this is the thing about gender ideology. You just literally have to scratch the surface of it for a tiny little bit, and it all falls apart. Mm-hmm. Everything. They know it's bullshit. But when it's one of the most educational things for me in the last 2 years has been watching a legal team deconstruct it, because it is different to how we do it in society. Because one of the things in law that you have, this is why stuff like CEDAW is really important, or like other legislation where you've got to go and look at it, is because everything was there. And so we have that. They don't. We have that. There has been no convention or treaty in international law that has been ratified by the countries that would require for gender identity to be in law anywhere. They have lied. Nothing. What they're relying on is a few ratified documents that will say things like sexual orientation and other status. And they will just claim that other status is gender identity. And you're like, well, then why didn't they say gender identity?
Yeah.
You can't go and just interpret it to whatever suits you. Because I could be like, well, that other status is actually adult human female. biological sex. That's how I'm interpreting it, because that's what suits my agenda. No, you actually have to go on based on facts and what it is. They don't have the facts, but what they have is lies. The entire premise is a lie. So it's like when we sit there and get shocked that they're lying, well, of course they are. They've said men or women. They don't have to tell the truth at all from that point onwards.
Yeah.
And the thing is, people are buying into the lie. I think that will change soon enough. I think the Cass report is the biggest turning point we've seen so far, of people seeing.
Doctor. I mean, she's an independent doctor. She did the study. It took her 3 years. She basically said that natural neuropathic medicine is the best way. You shouldn't, rush to put on kids on SRS or puberty blockers, and only in the extreme cases should you even go that route. So it's like talk therapy, natural remedy, figure out where the depression's coming from, where the dysphoria is coming from. And it makes sense, right? Like, we don't have to put these kids on blockers, but I'm watching the TRAs absolutely rip the Cass report apart. Oh, she's bigoted. Oh, she's this. And this poor woman now is getting unalive threats out in the street, and she has to hire security. And she's just this doctor that was just doing her job. It took 3 years of her life to bring this document to light, and she's just getting dragged through the mud over it,
Yeah. The reason is because grown adult men with autogynephilia cannot claim that this is a human rights issue if they are admitting the truth to everyone, which is they jerk off to the idea of themselves as a woman while wearing women's undies. That is the reality of the situation, but there's no support. Even Biden's not going all in on that, you know what I mean? But what they did is they created this concept of a trans child, because if you are born in the wrong body and you've got, it happens in childhood and there's a way you can fix it, that's the end to it being this big civil and human rights issue. Right. So they need this so much. If they don't have this narrative, everything else is exposed. Well, you know what? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You're exposed.
If Theodore is actually involved in this case, why do you feel like you would have to take it to high court? I know you're saying if you lose federal, then, he would probably take it to high court. But, why do you think we would lose it if Theodore is involved?
Because a judge in the federal court can choose to rule on the law as it is, rather than acknowledge that part of it and not get involved.
Right.
The other reason the other thing I have a question about also is, why would the court even take this case in general? Like, we know what women are, we know what it is, and it's legal, it's legal fiction, like we said earlier. So it's like, what was the principal reason for them to even take the case on?
Well, there is a conflict. Because gender identity is in law in Australia, there is a conflict, and this would be classed as like a novel case. And so novel cases usually get to go through because they get to sort of do some lawyering, and how fun is that? I mean, most court cases are really boring. It's just, it's not this. Of course, obviously we all know what a woman is, blah, 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 but the law has been muddled. And so it needs to be fixed. And so worldwide, in every place where there is gender identity in law, the place either legislators are going to go and just fix it, or if there's no political appetite to, which in Australia there is none, it's going to have to happen in the courts. And from the courts, that's where you'll get the political appetite, which is essentially what happened in the UK. Mayor Forstater, Alison Bailey, LGB Alliance, all these different cases that have gone to the courts and they've won and established it, has created the political appetite, because it's created a safety net for the politicians, because they can go, oh, well, the courts say this.
Yeah.
So it's the best place for us to go and fight it, because it is also the courts are where facts, reality, and evidence matter. Now, it's just sometimes you're going to have to do the scenic route to get there. Mayor Forstater also lost in her first round. It was on appeal that she won, and that was the important win. In Australia, the High Court is a court of appeal. It is an error in law court. It's where they go and fix the errors in law. That's the win we want.
It needs to go there.
That's the big win. It's not a he said, she said gender identity discrimination case in the High Court. Right. I don't even think it would be called Tickle v. Giggle by that point.
So if they take it to the High Court, they're going to get a verdict, and then they're going to adjust the law based on that. And that case is going to set a precedence for cases going forward, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes. So even if say we were to win in federal court and that was the end of it, and they say the other side didn't take it to the High Court, it would still be setting a precedent. But because the law would still be muddled, so so we could win because he could be like, okay. My barrister has explained this so many times where she goes like, it's possible, but she's like, the moment sex is engaged there, we've proven that point. That's the constitutional question, and that's our challenge, the High Court challenge. So the moment sex is engaged, just why there's just a probability that sex won't be engaged in the federal court. They'll leave it to the High Court, but we'll see.
Interesting. Envy, you got anything else?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I know your crowdfunding, I think it was for 500,000. If you are to take it, and did you meet that goal?
Mm-hmm. We did. Oh,
it was just good. So if you go High Court, do you know, will it be around the same?
Oh my God. If we go to the High Court, it will be between $500,000 and $750,000 that we'll have to raise. So by the end, we're looking at between $1 and $1.25 million.
Oh, unbelievable. I'm sure you'll be able to.
Money I do not have, evidently. But it's been just,
I'll do more 24-hour lives for you.
It's honestly just been the support of people all around the world. Because my thing is, I'm like, look, I'm happy to take this on. Let's just help, and we all we're all in this together, because this is it's not just like about the app. It's literally our rights in law. When we going to the High Court in terms of what the legal team will be, I mean, you give instructions to lawyers, and you're just like, my instruction is win. Just win it. God damn it. I just want to win. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Like, we'll see. I have no idea.
Sorry, I wanted to ask about the verdict. I know do you know roughly how long until we get an answer if you win or lose?
I'd say any time between June and September. My instinct is August, but could be July, could be August. I mean, there have been cases. My junior barrister, Anka, was telling me, she's like, I had a case in the federal court one time, and it took a year to get a verdict. And I was like, kill me now. No, it won't be a year for this. Our judge, I found him to be quite fair and nice. I mean, I respect him. I don't want anyone to think that I don't or anything like that. And he has a difficult job to do, and he'll be thorough and he'll take his time. So you just sort of have to I don't respect the premise of the case, but I respect the process.
And it wasn't a jury case, right? It was just a judge, no jurors. Gotcha.
So just quickly as well, I wanted to ask, have you heard of cis woman? They'll call you a cis. Were you ever referred to that in court by Tickle?
Were you?
Oh, and the Australian Human Rights Commission, in their submission, which honestly, everyone should go and read it. It is mind-blowing how stupid their submission is for what their case is and their interpretation of the law. You're like, it's just bonkers, because basically when the AHRC applied to intervene in the case, they said up front, we know that there is a conflict in the law. And I was like, well, you pricks then should go and fix it. Why are you leaving it to me? Go fix it. But then their solution to the problem, this conflict, is gender identity. So they're trying to solve the problem with the problem. It doesn't work that way. The intention of the Sex Discrimination Act was blatantly biological sex. In 1984, they didn't just go, here's the Sex Discrimination Act. Hey, women, just go and identify as men. No, they put in protections for women. The intention was based on biology. This is like, you can't deny this. They'll try, but this is so obvious. And so, they talk about cis women and trans women. I mean, they basically their claim was, like, the AHRC was saying that basically I treat trans women different to cis women. And you're like, and why would that be?
It's a very sexist term to call women cis, because to them, gender, right, is a social construct. Mm-hmm. And when you ask them, what is the social construct surrounding men and then social construct that surrounds women, they'll always bring up sexist stereotypes. Yeah. Oh, I like the color pink. I'm feminine. So therefore now that actually makes me a woman. So by me or any woman saying I am a cis woman, we are adhering to the sexist stereotypes that have been placed on us. So it's very harmful to walk around saying this person is a cis woman. Like, it's ridiculous.
One of the running jokes I had while I was pregnant was I like hated maternity clothes, and I was so uncomfortable. I didn't want to wear them. And I just wanted to basically just sit in my bed wrapped like up in a blanket like a burrito for 9 months. I hated being pregnant. But so I would wear my boyfriend's boxer shorts and t-shirts. And our joke the whole time was, am I non-binary? I'm wearing men's clothes the whole time. What does this mean? What's my gender identity while I'm pregnant? This is how stupid the ideology is.
It is based on behavior. That's all it is.
One of the ones is mannerisms and behavior. And I'm like, okay, what is gendered behavior? Because I think that a man refusing to accept that a woman has said no to him and taking her all the way to court, I think that's quite toxically masculine behavior.
Yep.
Do you know what made me laugh? I was reading through the transcripts in the trial, and you was asked a question by Mr. Tickle's lawyer, and your response was, "Well, if he was female, I wouldn't be here in court." I thought that was brilliant.
I know, I read it too. They were like, well, he's a female on paper. Everybody acknowledges him as a female. He wears dresses. It was on and on and on. And then you responded like, no, I'm not gonna say that this is a woman. And it was just great to see that you were just like, absolutely not. As much as this man altered his body, altered his documents, altered his language, changed his name, he's still just a man.
When I was, I'd never been cross-examined before. I really didn't know what to expect. But what I'd been told is and I'd watched some like stuff on YouTube about it of like, sort of what to expect and how to do it. And it was just, your job is to tell the truth. That's it. You can't, that's all you are expected to do. If you deviate from the truth in any way, that's bad. You're in court, tell the truth. And so I was like, I cannot sit here and say a man is a woman under oath. That's a lie.
Right.
I just have to tell the truth. And the truth is that men are not women. The last place I would have put me is on under oath. Like,
one more question I have. Did you get asked any ridiculous questions by his attorneys? Are you able to share like one of the questions that they asked you? You're not really allowed to.
I don't know. I'm just going to be really, really careful.
That's fair.
The questions that, in my opinion, I think that they were ridiculous. That's just my opinion. I mean, they're all they're on Twitter. All the transcripts are there. Everyone can read them and form their own opinions.
Yeah, I'll read through them. That's it. I got all my questions answered. And we got anything else?
I do have something, Sal. I know you probably got things to do. I also do t-shirt designs, and I just wanted to ask your permission on this. I have made a t-shirt with your face on, but I haven't sold it or anything. And I was just wondering if I was to do that, I'm happy to show you. If I was to do that, would I be able to take a percentage and like basically a percentage of each sale to give towards you and the case and things like that?
A percentage of each sale and give it to you. Like, women should be allowed to earn money.
No, but just to maybe help with the cost towards the case.
Fantastic. That would be fantastic. Yes, thank you.
Oh, amazing.
Yes. Like everything. I mean, that was in the transcription. There have been women who have done that, and it was part of the questioning. And I won't spoil it. It's worth reading because it's very funny. What I was being asked in federal court.
We're gonna look through it again. Then it was so between like the whole thing from starting the court case to now. Do you feel like have you looked back and said, I could have done something different, or I should have, or things like that? Or are you quite content with how it all went?
The only part is, so I'm a CEO that doesn't actually deal with like the day-to-day. I've never have. I don't understand numbers or anything. Like I didn't understand them when I was in high school. Like I'm not mathematical or anything, but other people, I surround myself with people who are. Because like I'm almost 40, you're not going to teach me this stuff now. Even to the point sometimes when people are explaining numbers to me, I'm like, can you write the numbers as words? I understand words. Numbers just are like, my brain does not compute them. I have no idea what they mean. So I've just never been that kind of a CEO, and I'm learning more. Like I know now so much more than I did like 4 or 5 years ago. But I'll never be really good at that kind of stuff. I'm I have other talents, and mine is like more ideas, and that's the creative part of it. I'm much more of a creative CEO, let's say. Like I'm not, like no one on this planet would ever hire me as like a chief financial officer. Like I went, absolutely no way. Like I remember one time actually my freelance journalism days, like back in my early 20s, and that I was commissioned to write an article about a hedge fund, which I'd never heard of at that point. And I was like, is that a money tree? Like, what is a hedge fund? I had no idea. And they kicked me off that article pretty damn quick. So I've never been that way. And so there were just a few times when I was questioned on that, where I was like, I really don't know. I mean, I said, I don't know. And so, you know, there was probably the time, like there was one mistake in an answer that I made because I didn't know. And I should have just kept saying, I don't know, but I sort of in the intimidation of the situation, I did answer and I gave the wrong answer.
Right.
As soon as I walked out, I was told by the people who didn't know, they were like, that is incorrect. And I was like, I didn't know. But
I wanted to ask you something a little differently also. I just went through my notes. What do you think about trans men?
So this was the thing I mean, I think they're women, but because no one changes sex, and I think it's all nonsense. However, in the sense of that, I think that on planet Earth of humanity living together, there's lots of people who have really stupid ideas that I think are nonsense. They are allowed to have them. And so females who believe in gender identity, who have one, who think of themselves as men even, have always been welcome on the app. This was always been my argument, that for me to kick off a female from a female-only space, that's gender identity discrimination. Mm-hmm. To kick off a man because he's a man, regardless of gender identity, that's sex discrimination, of which is allowed in this context. So from when I've been called transphobic, all of that stuff, and it's for so many women who are called TERFs, and it's like, we are advocating for females. That includes females who reject being female at the moment. I also actually think that it is the women who currently don't think they're women who will end this once and for all, because eventually they will come out the other side of it. Yeah, I think that they're the ones. So it's when we're all, you know, when there's sort of new people who come into this movement, and, you know, everyone's peaking journey is different. And, you know, I'm at the point now, I won't use, I've never used pronouns, but I used to say trans woman. I won't now, unless I'm sort of saying it because for quoting someone else.
Do you say trans-identified men and trans-identified women?
Past that, they're just men who claim to be women. I think trans is nonsense. But everyone's peaking journey is different. I don't even think it's a demographic. I honestly don't. It's a schizophrenic's a demographic? No. And so I just think it's nonsense. But as I said, you can believe it. And when and we see there's more and more detransitioners every single day, so many of them, to muster the courage to speak up is huge. And so the ones that are even able to do that, there's many more who don't. They will be the ones who end this, and they're coming at this from quite a different place than we are. And their language is going to be quite different from ours. So that's why, while I am very much like, I will not use any of the language, I won't police other people's, because I think that the people who are actually going to be the ones that make society go, this was a disastrous experiment, are going to be at least initially using some of that language because it's all they know. It's all they've been using for the last 5 or 10 years. So I think we have to be a little bit easy on that, in the sense of, these people have had, like, these, especially these women, but and quite a few, like, young gay men who have fallen victim to this, have been utterly indoctrinated that we want them dead. We do not. I want them to be safe and free of harm, and that we hate them. The genocide thing, all of these different things. They have been utterly indoctrinated with that. I think the absolute worst thing that we could do when they are emerging from that cult is to scare them with policing language. We actually have to be quite, like, just accept them for who they are and as they are. That's what they've never had.
Right.
And so it's just sort of, so I will be quite relaxed about that. I'm not going to go and tell a detransitioner how to speak. Absolutely no way.
I had a couple of them on my panel, and they're actually ostracized from the community. Oh, they were never trans. Oh, they're lying. Oh, they were pretending. Meanwhile, they passed more than most of the other TRAs and the other, TW, whatever. And then I had the trans widows come up. You want to hear really crazy stories? Talk to trans widows, talk to women that were married to men that transitioned when they're 40 and 50 years old, and how it destroyed and disrupted their entire life and their entire family.
You know what? And actually, I get annoyed at myself on this because I don't talk about trans widows enough. They are the forgotten demographic, and they need to be spoken about more. It's like at the moment in Australia, there's this big thing about domestic violence that's happening. And I'm like, okay, you want to talk about domestic violence? Let's. But it's going to include a conversation about trans widows because these women have been sexually, emotionally, mentally, financially, and in some cases physically abused.
Yep.
And you guys are all celebrating it as stunning and brave. No.
Yep. I had a woman come on the panel that went to a therapist with her husband after he came out when he was like 49 years old and he started dressing like a woman. And the therapist actually gaslighted the wife and told her that she was probably a les. So she was going through this whole thing. So she was confused already and she was disappointed because now her husband's dressing like a woman. And then she had somebody that was supposed to be helping her affirm that she was a lesbian. And, she just had to deal with it. Let him practice it. You're being hateful. Let him just do it on the weekends. If he disappears for a day or so, it doesn't really matter. He's just doing his inner self. It's his truth. Let him live his truth. And this woman came up and she was like, for years, she was gaslit. And she didn't really understand how to separate his fetish from her reality. She was like so consumed in trying to, fix her marriage and thinking that she was a lesbian and all this other stuff. So the ideology for her was so harmful for her and her children. Two out of the three of her children don't speak to the father anymore. And the whole story with these women that have to like suck it up and deal with it is horrendous. You should really talk to them. It's so bad.
There is a documentary coming out. So Vaishnavi, I was speaking about, she's so brilliant. She's this Indian feminist filmmaker. It's on her first film, Dysphoric, is on YouTube. It's in 4 parts. I recommend everyone go and watch it. It is so brilliant.
What is it called? Dysphoric?
It's called Dysphoric.
Okay.
Vaishnavi Sundar, is it Sundar? I've half got her last name right. I can't remember if I can't remember. Anyway, she's amazing. And she is editing, doing the final edit now of her next documentary, which is about trans widows. And she's put a few clips on Twitter and it's going to be amazing. These women have had, I think most of them have had to do it anonymous. One of the reasons why this film's taken so long is that she had to get animators to basically to make it sort of cinematic, to animate everything, because the women, they are so destroyed and they want to protect their privacy, their families, what they've been through. But they're telling that finally there's going to be sort of their voices into the mix of this. And they are the other group that have to be heard. They are trans widows, I would actually say right now, are the most forgotten group.
They are. And we name them trans orphans, like the kids of the father that now have to call their dad mom, or their dad just disappears and lives this, AGP life on his motorcycle with his wig. And these kids have to refer to him as mom now. So that's the other problem too.
I told my daughter's dad, we were talking about it one day and I was just like, and obviously he's on my side with all of this, so it's fine. But I just said, if you one day just told me that you think you are a woman, I was like, my reaction would be just be like, oh, that's really, really interesting. I'm going to go and buy you a dress. Give me a credit card. And I would go and I would buy a new lock for the door and I would come home and change it and make sure he could never, ever come near me or my daughter ever again.
But it's such emotional blackmail because, they're told that they're hateful. We don't want to be told we're hateful. We don't want to be told we're bigots. We don't want to seem like we're angry. We're angry women. We're miserable. We're hateful. And it's not the case. We simply just want to ask for our basic right and necessity. And we're gaslit to be told that we're so hateful and we're so dramatic. And who cares? Let him practice. What's the big deal?
Someone in the comments just mentioned Bruce, Caitlyn Jenner. Do you know what? Actually, the only episodes of the Kardashians that I've ever watched, go back and watch them. The episodes after he came out, Kris Jenner was having an absolute breakdown. And she was very, very honest about it. It's worth going and watching. She was explaining it all. because she was like, what, the last 25 years of my life, what on earth does it mean? What has happened? He just couldn't financially abuse her because obviously she was the matriarch of that family. Mm-hmm. But the emotional abuse was there. And her trying to make sense of it all. And that's probably the most mainstream, but her story did not get she didn't get, front page of Vanity Fair like he did. Well, and it was actually, she should have.
Yeah, he was glorified through the whole thing. Oh, he's brave. Look what he did. Meanwhile, poor Christian are sitting there like, what's going on here? And he was just Woman of the Year, glorified, going to speak, on stage, and people were clapping and applauding him. And this poor woman is sitting back like, what happened to my life?
He's definitely sort of come out like on our side more and more. But I'm like, I keep him at arm's length because I'm like, dude, give back the Woman of the Year award. Stop this. Stop the whole thing. Do whatever you want to do in your private life, but just stop this public display of a fetish, and then maybe we can talk. But until then, sometimes I wonder with some of these men if pretending to be on our side is part of the fetish.
Yeah. You know what? It could be, actually. It could be. I wanted to ask as well, just quickly, about pronoun usage in the courtroom. Did they ever ask you or try to get you to call him she?
No. They asked if I would. Just an irrelevant question, and I said no.
Say you met a man who thinks he's a woman or whatnot, and he asked you to use his preferred pronouns, would you do that? Or
when would I be in a conversation just with him?
No, this is
so he's telling me how to speak. Yeah, he's telling me how to speak when he's not around. And you know what? I'm not friends with people who tell me how to speak.
Yeah,
there's not even the transness of
within a panel setting. Me personally, I would never call a man a she, even if they're my friend. It would never happen. But if we was in a panel setting now and we had a man who thought he was a woman in the panel, and you were talking to me and you were like, Envy, would you still call him he?
Yes, I would, because, and he can sit there and go like, this is so hurtful and harmful, and he hates hearing it all he wants. Well, you know what? Buckle up, princess. I really hate hearing men call themselves woman, but we have to cope with that and present the arguments and explore the conversation while that is happening. So, and I'm not going to tell you to stop doing it. Call yourself whatever you want. I don't care. Just don't, a man can walk around. If it makes you happy in the morning to wake up and delude yourself that you're a woman, okay. As I said, people think crazy things about themselves all the time. There's so many things we don't even know. So, whatever.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think about people that say, oh, I would use the preferred pronouns if I respect this person? How do you feel about them saying that? Because myself, I take that as if somebody says, I'm going to use the preferred pronouns to be respectful, I feel like it's indirectly saying that because we are now disrespectful.
Yeah, I think it's the gateway drug. I think that it's that thing, what we were saying at the beginning about the kindness. I'm going to use pronouns to be respectful. Okay, well, then you're going to have to accept that you're being disrespectful to women or to the people on the other side of the conversation. So you've made a choice of who you're going to respect, and it's the one who is doing all the disrespecting. Mm-hmm. So why? It's just pronouns. Honestly, I'm just get over yourself.
Yes, because me and Christy, we along with another creator, a couple of other creators on this app, we do sit down and we say it. We're not going to use the preferred pronouns, but then we get other creators that are kind of on our side, but then we'll say, oh, but to be respectful, I'm going to use their preferred pronouns, which is kind of I'm not undoing what me, Christy, and Shanta have, tried to keep a hold of, but it's almost saying that because me, Christy, Shanta don't want to use the pronouns and because we don't believe in that, then we are being disrespectful by not using it. So it's almost as if the people on our side are indirectly attacking us by saying, hey, to be respectful, I will use it.
Completely. Also, you've lost and also anyone who's going, I'm using pronouns to be respectful. And I'm like, cool, well, you're going to just have to acknowledge, and I'll just say this respectfully, you've lost the argument, because the moment you're using she, her for some men, you now put us in a position, how are we going to explain why that she, her can't come to a female only space?
Right. Yeah, I've had people make videos, creators. Yeah, creators that are on our side would make videos because I don't want to call them trans women. They'll make a video and call us out and that we're hypocrites and whatnot.
I potentially maybe once or twice did it on Twitter in the pre-Elon days because I was very protective of my Twitter account because it was the only place I had to have a voice on this. So I was very careful with my language. Now I'm not because I know he's got our back, but I was. So maybe I would have in the very early days just being really careful because they would, they just mass report us, you'd get suspended. And I was like, if I get suspended, then I literally have no way of defending myself, basically. So yeah, I played the game as best as I could while not sort of dying inside. Now I feel much better. We don't have to do that anymore.
What about like grown men that have names like Maddie or like Stephanie and Jessica? Like that irritates me because it's like, well, if you don't want to call them, their preferred pronouns, let's call them their names, Madison. And I'm like, this is a 55-year-old man taking a name that's walking around calling themselves Madison. And obviously there's women with that name, right? But it's different because these are 50-year-old men that are like, oh, my name's Maddie. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on with this, Like, how do you even navigate through that? Oh,
you don't like know their name. And so you sort of like, you're like, oh God, I have to, I sort of just use their last name as much as possible. I haven't been, to be honest.
I don't want to interrupt you. I just got a flag from you, I think it's probably from you. I think you're speaking. Yeah, so just be really careful going forward. No, it's fine. I'm not going to obviously remove you. Can I, is it possible I could drop you and bring you right back up?
Yeah, cool.
I just don't want to lose the live access. I'm going to drop you and come right back up. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh, we almost got through the whole thing. Almost. All right, where's Sal? Let me invite her back. Okay, I just sent the invite, Sal. Sorry about that. You back?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear? Oh, wait, where's the camera? Hang on. There we go. Okay, all cool. Sorry.
I just don't want to lose the live if we're still going for a little.
All good. In terms of the name, yes, it is stupid. I mean, people have nicknames. I suppose I would avoid using it. Like I don't want to call a 55-year-old man Ashley or Madison or like Brittany. Yeah, because they're never like Cheryl or Brenda, Martha, Carol. Right. They're just these like little girly names.
Do you use that? Do you use that language too?
What?
Do you call them by their name too? Because I feel like it's hard to navigate through that also because it's like we don't want to call them she, her, right? I just call them Tims because it's easier for me and it sounds like a masculine name. I'm like Tim works, But people are like, it's just use my name, and I'm like, oh, but your name's Maddie, and you're like 57, and you're an AGP. I don't want to call you that.
Yeah, because it's part of the fetish of having someone call them that. Like that's the thing when you understand what autogynephilia is, and it's all of these points they're hitting when they're just like they love hearing you say it. So I'm not participating in your fetish. Mm-hmm. So, but to be honest, I haven't been in many situations where I've had to do that because none of them will speak to us or have like panel discussions or whatever. So
come join TikTok. They're everywhere. They come up on every panel and they tell us why we're infertile and we're the same and their name is all these ridiculous things. If you want to get a good laugh, you should do TikTok lives and just get them. They'll come up and they will tell you every which way under the sun why they are what we are.
I dare them to try. I dare them. Princess. My thing is also I don't really feel a need to engage with them that much because I'm not trying to convince them. I'm not trying to pick them. I just want all of the reasonable, rational people in the world who are curious about what's going on to understand the situation. And they're welcome to go and listen to both sides and see who is reasonable and telling the truth and grounded in reality. People who are that delusional, stay in your delusion if that makes you feel better. I don't care. Just don't bring me into it.
Yeah, I think me and Christy, our whole point, we know we're not going to change like their mind per se, but because there's so many people on this app, I think there's like 30 million active users a day, and we know that social media, can really change people's perceptions. And all you're seeing all day long on this app is men who think they're women. I'm a woman with bright colors and dolls and toys in their room. And it's really like, so me, it's not necessarily for them, but it's for the people who are on the fence that are watching and listening. It's for them that this is why me and Christy, we reiterate the same arguments all day, every day, talking 8, 9, 10 hours a day, streaming to do this. And the amount of women that have come forward and have said, hey, Envy, or hey, Christy, I used to think this, right? But since listening to you, now you've put my head right. Of course they're not women. So this is what me and her, we sit here day to day.
That's fantastic. That is so important of just people hearing it, because you know what? Like, courage is contagious, and so is the truth, actually. And so if other women go like, oh, hang on, like these brave women are saying it, I can too. And it's just down the chain, everyone has to get just a little bit less brave, really, because eventually you're just part of this massive group that's just saying the truth, and it's fine. It was the hardest for the first woman who ever said it.
Yeah. And the other hard part is the women that are pro this movement. It's hard to get them to understand the damage that it's doing to them. They're like, who cares? It's just peeing, and they're washing their hands and they're leaving. And I'm like, it's so much more than that. So when we break things down into pieces of how damaging it is in the restrooms and in the sports and the shelters, and New York City, they're getting raped in the prison system, then they start to kind of come and they're like, oh, it's something I have to think about. And then a couple of weeks later, they'll come back and they'll be like, hey, you know what? I read this and it's wrong. And we start to sway people over so they can understand that it's hurting them. Even though they don't want to advocate with us, we have to still advocate for them, because they're going to be hurt in the long run. Even with trans men, the trans-identified females, if something happens to them, are they going into the male prison? They're going to get destroyed in the male prison. Destroyed. It's going to be the worst possible thing that could ever happen to them, is them going into a male prison. So we would still have to advocate for them.
Yeah. Oh, completely. No, without a doubt. I actually think I'm against trans men going in male bathrooms, because you know what? We know the predators are out there somewhere, and the moment that they know that there is a female in that room, she is immediately in danger. I have absolutely no doubt. I've heard a few stories. I have no doubt that stuff is happening, like bad attacks are happening, but they're just all being swept under the rug because, the jig is up.
Yeah. Right. So, they'll say to us, if a trans-identified man, a man who thinks he's a woman, or a trans-identified woman goes into the man's, or because they're saying, I want it to be females in female spaces, irrespective of what you think and feel, right? You're a female, you've got the right to be in a female space. But then they'll try and hit me with, but she would look like she would look like a man, right? Because of the testosterone and the beard and all of that. And my thing to them is, this ideology has left women with two choices. We either accept women who may look like men in our spaces, or we accept men who think they're women in our spaces. Yeah. I know which one I'm opting for,
Well, of course. And the thing is, so testosterone is a one-way street, and it absolutely destroys your body, this synthetic testosterone, when you take it. On like camera and photos and things like that, like women who think they're men can pass slightly more, and it's the beard and the receding hairline that's doing the heavy lifting there. But in real life, in person, it's obvious that you have to, you do it like a bit of a double take. I think something's off here. Oh, it's a female person, because it's the walk, it's the bone structure, it's the size of hand size, it's face, it's everything. It's the squeaky voice, everything. You can tell there is no deceiving anyone here. And trust me, a man can tell that is not an actual male person when it comes down to it. I think that maybe the one group of people who may need a third space for bathrooms and change rooms is women who have gone through testosterone. And because while I'm all for like coming to female any spaces, you are welcome. If that initial double take is going to scare women, I don't want women to be scared either. So this is the thing, they've just created this whole new problem that did not exist.
Yeah.
Literally, society did not have to go, where do the women who have taken testosterone for 5 years have to go? But if we are trying to protect everyone, Buck Angel is a classic example. Now, legally, I think Buck Angel should be welcome in a female-only space. She's female.
Yeah.
Would there be women who would go, hang on, I don't understand what's going on here. Is this a man? Is this a woman? And then you've got a situation to say, every time Buck has to explain, I'm actually a woman? I mean, how is that, if they're actually dysphoric, how is that not doing it every time? So it's like, okay, well, let's have a conversation. Do we, because of this stupid experiment that should never have happened, do we actually have to, for a generation, create a third space? Maybe we do. I don't like that idea, but it might be what has to happen.
Right. What you got, Envy? I think some of the girls, would you take a couple of questions for another 5 or 10 minutes? Would you mind? Envy, did you know who wanted to come?
I think if Marty here? I don't know if she's in the request.
Summer is in the request. Was Summer one?
No, I don't think so.
Summer, I think
I've only spoke to Malatov and Marty.
I'll bring Summer up because she was on from me. She wanted to come up. Hey, Summer.
Hi, how are you, ladies?
Hi.
What a fantastic interview. Congratulations, guys. Sal, what a pleasure to meet you. I love everything that you're doing, and just know that you have so many Australian women on here that are supporting you and cheering you on, and we're so grateful for everything that you're doing. My questions were around the HRC, CEDAW and whatnot, which you've covered, so I'm not going to waste your time. But I'd just like to know, what advice would you give Australian women wanting to create and facilitate their own support groups for women only in this country?
Yeah, good question. So in terms of are you thinking support groups just of being able to connect with women now to be able to talk about this stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the moment they're sort of just underground, aren't they? That's the harsh reality, and everyone's sort of finding each other any which way they can. I think that hopefully between the work of Tickle v Giggle and then also Lesbian Action Group with what they're doing, and they're appealing to the AHRC because they haven't been allowed to do events. And we just keep bringing attention to it. The best thing to do is to bring attention to it to regular, everyday Australians, because all of them agree with us.
Yes.
It's like people who disagree with us are like 8 people who work at the AHRC. So, I just think that creating support groups, especially for parents, and be specific about what the support group is, because sometimes if it's just sort of, just all of this in general, everything can start to get lost. What seems to me to be really needed in Australia right now is support groups specifically for women who have to play against these guys in sport.
Yes, I'm an ex-elite swimmer, and the kicker for me for this whole TERF movement was the whole Riley Gaines, William Thomas saga. Yeah. And when a man said, because I have severe PCOS, so when a man said, I can go into the women's bathroom because I'm standing in solidarity with women who have PCOS, and
that's in my family, yeah. Right, just the nonsense. I actually went to the Australian Open Swimming Championships 2 weeks ago, or a week, a bit ago, whenever they were. And I went with my mum, we were sitting there watching it, and we were like, to be like the guys race and the girls race. And we're like, oh, wow, look at that. Not a single woman in this pool swam faster than the men. And all these amazing swimmers who are going to the Olympics.
Funny that.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
You see it.
I couldn't imagine it flying.
Yeah. If the worst male swimmers there on the day would have beaten the best female swimmers, it just...
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah. But
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
so much, Summer. I have a few more girls. I just want to ask you a quick question, and you don't mind, right? I hope you have another couple of minutes. We picked a couple of girls earlier in the day, so we're just going to try to get them up. If we could just go quickly, we can get through everybody. Hi, Marty.
Hi, sorry. It's nice to meet you, Sal, and thank you for everything that you have done. I know it wasn't a planned part of your life or anything like that. I was just wondering, do you think it would be better if this case does go to your high court with regards how this would affect women within CEDA and internationally, or would the case law be enough to, like, from what your legal team has told you?
Yeah, so even, so say if we were in federal court, the precedent has been there because internationally there is no case law. So when you have a situation like that, they all look to each other. So it would still be all of the arguments that we used, everything would hold up. And the precedent would still be there to be cited. In terms of a high court win, that it's just so strong at that point. It's such a strong argument. I didn't understand how it actually played out in courts until, like, I was sort of sitting in there. I'd never sat in a courtroom before. And when they are citing other, like, cases of different things, and they would be doing this in terms of, like, definitions or whatever. And and then, someone goes, well, actually, no, that doesn't apply here, or that's so weak and this is being replaced by that. And that's like sort of big part of the battle in a court situation. So you want the strongest possible precedent set.
Okay. Yeah, and that would include language that we use for women and men as well. The language would be very important.
It would establish that the International Bill of Rights for women is for females, not, everyone's come out to, the people like Reem Aslam who's come out to defend it. It's all, like, everyone's saying it, it's all there. You just need a court, you need a judge to acknowledge it, and then it's being defended.
Okay, thank you very much.
Marty. Let me see what else we got. Hi, Sassy.
Hey, just a quick question. We in the United States will be losing TikTok here soon, in the next months, they say. And our president has overturned Title IX on us. To include or be more inclusive. My question is if we lose TikTok and all of this, we're one, going to need your help with this, and two, how else can we find you if we lose TikTok?
She's on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm not really on TikTok. I'm on Twitter. So I'm Sal Tweets on Twitter. And I sort of think that if TikTok goes, something will pop up in its place anyway, so I wouldn't be too worried. Yeah, I saw Elon the other day asking everyone, should you bring back Vine? So it's like, something will happen. A new one will be created and maybe it'll be better. I don't know. I don't know anything about TikTok.
She's all over Twitter. I watch her and she's like posting all over the place, retweeting stuff. So you can catch her on there, Sassy.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I was eating. I was not expected to be chosen.
Okay, bye.
I do.
It's okay. It's okay. Hold on. After this, we got two more. We have, is Martha, I know Martha wanted to come up. I don't see her in the queue, but there's two more, Sasha and Chelsea. And if Martha wants to come up, but that's it. Hi, Audrey.
Hi, Sal. So the UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls has just spoken out against puberty blockers and gender affirming care, saying they're devastating for the human rights of girls. So I was wondering, I felt much more positive about that than I have about the UN for some time. Do you think we have a lot to worry about with the UN? Do you think they're going to be captured by this? Maybe even not through law, but internally through people working there, because obviously a lot of it's based in New York.
Yeah, so the UN, in terms of the UN, like, conventions and treaties, no, they're not captured. In terms of, like, their social media managers, yes. Like, there's lots of activists that work there. They can't, like, they can't get past the foundational documents of everything. Reem Aslam, it's on her Twitter. You'll have to just scroll down a bit. I think she did it, might have come out on around the 5th or 6th of April. She published her letter that she wrote to the Australian Human Rights Commission defending CEDAW. It's worth reading. It's brilliant. It's
okay.
document. It's a document for females. It hasn't been defended, and no one sort of thought you needed to. It would have been great in 1979 if they just made it super, super clear, like adult human female, but it would have been like, you know, I don't know, defining what like a finger is. You just know what it is. Like it's just, yeah. But anyway, here we are. We won't make this mistake again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye, Audrey. We got two more. I'm only gonna do Sasha and Chelsea. That's it. I think Martha's busy. Envy. Everybody said she's busy. Hi, Chelsea.
Hello. So I have a question as someone who's newly, I guess, quote, on this side of the, this side of the argument. I wouldn't even call it an argument because it's fact versus, you know, someone's perception. What advice do you have for us younger generations who are fighting for this same cause?
So the first thing I think that will make you feel really, really good and strong about it is to just learn as much about it as you can. That's what I did. When I was like, what's going on? And then I was like, okay, if you know what the other side is saying, then they can't shock you with anything. You know, they can't try and like get one over you. So what I did is I listened. I think the best voice on this is Helen Joyce, this amazingly soft-spoken 50-something-year-old Irish woman is so perfect at explaining everything, breaking down the ideology, how it has infiltrated everything, why it would have, what it's actually saying, and what the responses are. She's so good. And if you just type her into YouTube, go back from her interviews from, she's been doing them, like really great interviews from like, say, 2020, 2021. Posey Bug, Kelly J, like her trigonometry interview that she did in, I think, 2019. So it was before I found out what was going on. I must have listened to that when I was just reading everything and trying to learn what was going on. I must have listened to it about 50 times because it was so plainly spoken. It was just, no, they're men. And I was like, oh, okay. They're just men. Yeah. You could you could unpack everything they were trying to gaslight you with. If you just learn everything, it becomes easy. Like read Helen's book. Kathleen Stock's book is really, really good. Although I think it's just it's because it's sort of philosophical, so it's a little bit more dense. I don't find it as an easier or as a relaxing read, I suppose. You sort of have to use your brain a bit more in that one. But it's still fantastic. But yeah, there's so much content out there now of people who have been studying this for such a long time, who really understand it. And if you just keep educating yourself, you will, you'll get there, and you'll feel really strong with it. That I think that's just the basis of it. If you, like, for me, people have said to me, how can you go and just speak about it? Because I know I'm just telling the truth. I know I'm right. So I'm not scared. It would be much scarier to go and talk about something where I had to study it in a different way, quantum physics. That would terrify me to have to talk about. But this, it's just the truth. And once you understand it, it's super easy.
All right. Thank you so much for your advice. I was really curious to know because I'm in Envy, and I have talked about this earlier, but the preferred pronouns thing is something that I'm really grappling with because in the US you can lose your job over it. And since I am young and I'm still establishing myself in the professional world, I feel like I'm stuck in a rock and a hard place. Do I choose?
No, don't go and lose your job over something because that's not putting you in a strong position. Sometimes you have to take one step back to take two steps forward. Sometimes you've got to play a game a little bit just to get, the pronouns thing will pass eventually. So there's no point going and fighting on that unless you had, in your workplace, a whole group that were no, we don't want to do this. Then you're protected by numbers, but you don't need to go and, I don't think, do that battle on your own. You could, it's better to just have conversations with people about I'm asking myself these sorts of questions, or this doesn't really make sense, and have really pleasant and civil and mature and fact-based conversations with people rather than just going, I don't do this, and it becomes this hostile thing and then we're called bigots or whatever. There's just choose always find the path that hopefully will have the least resistance.
Okay, yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you so much. And thank you for all you're fighting for. And I hope it goes in our favor.
It will eventually. It will.
Thank you.
Bye, Chelsea. All right, we got one more. And that's it.
Ladies, hey Envy, hey Christy, and it is amazing to see you on here, Sal. I've been following you for a minute on Twitter. I heard you mention KJK earlier, and I think that's wonderful. If for those of you who aren't familiar, she has developed a party of women to address the issues of female people. So in the event that you win the trial, would you be willing to join an initiative to implement global sex-based protections for female people?
Yeah. Yeah. Like we've got to, I think, to be honest, I think that we're starting to get to the point where all of this stuff is going to start happening quicker and quicker. It could still be 5 years, which is a long time. This has been a long 5 years for me already. 4 years, but it's not even 5 yet. But we will get there in the end, and it's going to get quicker and quicker because a lot of people are going to just like jump ship really quickly and abandon it. And so it's a lot easier to clean up the mess when the people making the mess aren't there. But to make sure, we've got to make sure that, women in all countries have their sex-based rights protected. And we've got to make sure that there's some countries where we really don't talk about them enough, and that's India, South Korea, and Japan, because gender identity ideology is in those countries. And because of a language barrier, sort of they're not getting the attention that they require and deserve. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do, but there's more and more of us every day doing it. And so we'll get there.
Period. Christy, can I plug it?
Go ahead.
So for any women who are interested in the development of an international political party to protect the sex-based protections of women, to implement the sex-based protections of women globally, please message me and we will add you to the initiative. Send me your email. Thank you. I really appreciate it, Christy.
Anytime. Bye, Sasha.
Bye.
Sal, thank you so much. I am like fangirling still over this. Thank you so much. We wanted to ask you one more thing. If when the case ends, will you come back up and chat with us one more time about how it goes?
Yep. I'll come back if you want once we get a verdict, because
Yeah.
we'll be going to the High Court and I can explain that, and it'll be so much easier and such a different case by then. Like easier. I'm not sitting there having to read all the legislation, but easier for me. But yeah, it'll be such a different climate and situation. So no, just anytime, let me know.
Sal, just quickly, babe, if I wanted to get in touch with you just to send over a couple of the designs, how can I, on Twitter, is that the best place or?
That's the best place. Yeah, just send me a DM.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Bye, Sal. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming up. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's see you. Bye, Sal.